Okay, so we've got a very good panel here this afternoon from the colleges and universities across Suffolk and into Norfolk, haven't we? Yeah, well, just trying to check that, yeah, because you're one college now, aren't you? I should know this, working for the LEP. I don't know how you ran it this morning. Was it just hands in the air, questions for the panel? Is that how you did it? Oh, Jessica, go for it then. Here she comes. She's still moving chairs, I think.
Thank you. Hopefully this is working. Well, I just want to say how brilliant it has been to hear from you two students. And I know we've got 4 students, but hearing both you young men and your aspirations and thoughts, it's really, really actually makes me feel better about the future. But what I would like to ask each of you, what do you see yourself doing in 10 years' time? And I'm afraid I haven't heard what, you two girls, but I'd just like to hear what you two young men would like to see yourself doing as you sort of get into the swing of your careers in the future.
Would you like to go first? Or? Okay. I'll go first? Okay. I have, this year I started working on creating an online business, and I've just been studying and learning stuff and trying to understand and figure out stuff like SEO and web development. In 10 years from now, I hope that I would have developed this business even further and take it to new heights and to grow its social media. And also what I would love to do would be to get real industry practice in a real business environment where I can actually apply the skills that I've learned in university through hours of learning. But I really hope that I can convert my online business into a real physical business eventually.
And for me, I would like to be somewhere in 10 years' time where I'm helping to actively make the planet more sustainable and trying to prevent and stop the climate crisis. And I'd like to see myself in some kind of role that is about practical conservation, or even perhaps teaching the next generation about why biodiversity is so important and how we can fix this climate crisis.
Thank you so much. You're very inspirational.
I'll make one comment firstly, I think I'd like to be retired in 10 years. That's beside the point. But I mean, you can comment as well, but from a university and a college perspective, what these guys are showing, demonstrating there, is the training for the next sort of generation and supporting, as we all said, supporting the county and beyond, really, within that. So that's one thing, because there is, as you said, there's a huge skills shortage that is coming within this sector that we as a higher education and further education need to step up to actually help, and well, you guys and others throughout the community coming forward. So that's an important, and on a more personal level, it's my interest is within, as professor, is research and to identify, looking at some of the key issues that are going on within society. My interest is in toxicology, intoxicants, so it's looking at how we manage that as well. So it is, again, that bigger picture that I personally try to get across, certainly to Thomas, we were teaching him yesterday about lithium, ecological risk assessment of lithium, weren't we?
Anyway. Do we have another question at all? Matthew at the back.
Thomas, a question for you. What can local councils do to help with biodiversity?
Pardon, I didn't hear that.
Sorry, what can local councils do to help biodiversity?
I think what councils can do is, I think firstly they need to, if they can, to try and educate more people about it and why there's a problem, because I don't think there's enough said in the educational side. But I also think councils need to make finding biodiversity and engaging with biodiversity more accessible, and so that needs to come from better transport links to places where there's biodiversity hotspots like nature reserves, but also councils have to be part of this change in climate change. If we go stop it, they need to provide better transport networks so that more people want to use public transport like buses to get to universities rather than cars, because otherwise how are they going to stop that?
Thank you. Matthew at the back.
Hi there, Matthew Ling, Suffolk County Council. I'm really intrigued. I just wonder in terms of the education bit, because having very specific dedicated courses for sustainability, and I think one of you mentioned about trying to bring it across the whole curriculum. And I was just wondering what you're doing to embed the net zero, the climate change, the sustainability, the environmental stuff, so it's embedded across, so that people in early childhood studies will use it as part of their decision making. People in nursing and midwifery will use it as part of their decision making as they progress through their career. Thank you.
Yes, so as part of East Coast College's full-time curriculum, there's mandatory tutorials around raising that core awareness. And we then involve employers around masterclasses. So for example, last week, we've got the fashion industry coming in and working with students on a fashion course around the impact fashion can have on sustainability and how they can consider their future and how they embrace that. So we have plumbing students looking at air source heat pumps this week. We've got electrical students who are raising awareness around hybrid car charging points. So it's core and it's contextualised, because we're trying to link it to their career aspirations, to get the hook, to make them understand that actually they have got the biggest part to play, not only now, but in the future. It's really important.
Yeah, I would concur exactly with that. I mean, at the present moment, it is very much on a course-by-course basis. So the business courses will have their outreach to look at that, and we do certainly within, obviously, the wildlife type of courses, and health do as well. One of the ideas, and it's only gradually coming to fruition, is sort of embedding it across the whole of the university, and ideas putting forward and visions going forward, where actually you have, if you want a sustainable global citizen, they need to understand the whole aspect. I'm very much about the whole aspect, and that's something I'm looking at and building on, because we have, as I said, we've got buy-in from all over. I mean, everybody is interested in it, and it's important to get that. And so I'm really important to see how somebody within life science and looking at biodiversity, how that does actually link to no poverty, equality, because those are the other SDGs. It's not just this, it's a bigger thing. So yeah, and as you said, you get people coming in and that interaction, which is really vital.
Michelle.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a quick question about education funding to help make sure that we've got the right courses to help us to deliver on our sustainability agenda, and not just the traditional courses of construction and engineering and manufacturing and processing, but creating heat network engineers of the future. Is the education funding system keeping up with that? Are we? I can see some laughs already. But and I think this is one of the challenges that we've got. We've got people who want to develop these technologies. We've got young people who want to work in the industries. Is there anything that we need to do to help make sure that the funding system through the education network keeps up?
Yeah, so definitely in terms of FE, you will constantly see FE funding has been lagged for many years, and there is a lot around the new skills bill, jobs plans around how we can make education robust. But it's not just about funding, it's also about the qualifications. So there needs to be a collective approach to awarding bodies to actually say how current are your qualifications, because the qualifications are the elements that attach the funding. So it's a chicken and egg environment of we need to maximise funding, but also we need to make sure qualifications are robust and current, but also as an education provider, what else can we do on top of the qualifications? So we go above and beyond, and the college, historically was delivery the same qualifications every year. We now work with labour market intelligence, we work with employers about actually what is the changing need. So yes, there still will be a need for gas engineers, but actually we're evolving into renewables. So it constantly needs challenge, and part of our curriculum planning every year is we bring in employers and sectors to we justify why we're doing it.
Hi, yes, I just sort of wanted to reassure everybody that I think we're all part of something called the Decarbonisation Academy that works through the LEP, and we're just on the beginning of defining that over the last few months. But that is really to look at embedding sustainability and climate literacy across the whole of the region within every context. So quite a big ask, but it's something that we are collaborating on as a group of learning and training providers. And I think from the university perspective, obviously, we're kind of, and the same for you guys with your degree courses, you're not as locked into a curriculum as you might be on some of the types of courses. So there's definitely that flexibility from lead course tutors to be able to, and in fact they must, every year update and move with whatever is coming through within their area of specialism. So it doesn't necessarily always capture all the elements, which, as Nick said, is why we're starting to work much more across discipline, so that we're getting different schools talking to each other and making sure that their specialist knowledge is being pulled through into other degree courses.
Can I ask a question? Is that all right? Just ask the question of you guys. Having worked in my kitchen for the last 20 months, as many of you will have done, there's no doubt that the crisis as it has been, as awful as it has been, is going to drive change. Life and business won't go back to complete normal as it was before. And there's nothing like a national crisis as to drive innovation and change in society. Just look at wartime Britain and how that changed in technical, innovative terms and gender equality and so on. There must be some real opportunities now coming out of a crisis, we hope, for education and academia, working with business, etc., to make some real changes. Because, my experience so far is we were talking about the same things at the opening Greenest County conference 15 years ago, and we still haven't moved the agenda on as much as we should have done. I get the impression now there's a real opportunity because change has been pushed onto us, and now can we kind of capture that energy and what can we do, I guess? Do you see that?
Yes. Ian, that's quite a difficult question to answer. Sorry, going back 15 years, I read something this morning in the Guardian. You can tell what I read. That actually the word climate change was first used in 1845 in the US. So 170 years later, and we're still talking about it. But what change is coming there? I think the change is coming, as you said, we talked about it, and the technologies are there. But I think what's happened is that it's sort of what we've got here, community. And the community spirit that came through COVID, clapping for NHS is there. And the power of community to change policy is what sort of, I think, is coming through more and more. And that did come after the war and various other major events, because though we can do individual things, and this is what this is about, heat pumps, etc., we do need, and I'm afraid to say those that we do need governments that actually take responsibility and put in policies and regulations. This is my view. I mean, I think I've shared what my political views are already today, but that's what I sort of think, because leaving it to the market is not working. It's been 15 years since we've known about this for decades, and it's been left to the market, and it hasn't really, well, it's improved our life, yeah, greatly. I mean, with that, but it hasn't improved biodiversity loss. So I think communities coming together and working together is the big thing that's come out of it. That's not an education side of things, but that's what I see as it's a personal view.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I think what Nick is saying is correct, but I think it can also impact on education just with that community element, because if you think of something like the Institute of Technology that we're trying to develop, that's a couple of universities, 3 or 4 different colleges coming together, developing the institute, and our students will then be much more of a community, sharing ideas with one another. So with the learning we've had through the lockdown, just simple things like digital learning, digital communication, that allows the students who are sitting here in Ipswich to communicate with our students in Great Yarmouth and Lowestoft, equally with those in West Suffolk. And they can all be within the same discussion groups and having the same lectures and the same opportunities with the employers. So I think that, just at a very basic level, that level of digitisation is really going to help and impact on education.
Any other gentleman over here? Well, you got a long walk again, I'm afraid. Well, no, yes, hang on. We want to hear you properly.
Hi. So I was curious about what the colleges and university are doing as institutions about their own ecological impact and carbon footprint, and what role the student bodies have had in those, those actions.
Yes, so in terms of East Coast College, myself and Kerry lead up the sustainability group, of which we make sure that there is a range of team members present, not just staff that want to get involved, but the ones we need to get involved. We've got the student ambassadors that I mentioned in the presentation, and it's an open door of challenge, research, inquiry, rather than this is what we're doing and it's very static. So we revamped our sustainability policy in the summer. We've set ourselves some really challenging targets around biodiversity, around clean energy, sustainability in all aspects, whether it's our staff base, how we're developing our staff, or our actual physical resources. So we've revamped, because I think, as we mentioned already, I will put our hand on our heart and say college became a bit stagnant and slow about what we needed to do and the pace of it. So we've really rebooted that, from governors to cleaners to students to employers. And we will monitor and we will constantly push that through to make sure it happens. And we'll celebrate it when there's good news as well.
Ian, we actually have our sustainability officer sitting right in front of me. Justine, do you want to comment? Yes. Maybe if you get the mic and come and...
Yes, so we've obviously declared a climate emergency. So we're looking to go to, for Scope 1 and 2, to become carbon neutral by 2030. And then for Scope 3 and the final remaining bits of Scope 1 and 2 to be net zero by 2050. And there's a carbon plan that kind of underpins that, that's currently being redrafted to look at how we financially achieve that, but also that all-important behavioural change piece. We've been probably not dissimilar to yourselves, we've been monitoring and measuring all of our utilities, consumption, waste, water. We have a biodiversity plan that takes us to 2024, which is all about sort of increasing networks. We're in quite an urban environment, so this is really important, that whole 30 by 30 piece. We have waste strategies. We're really pushing now into the circular economy and trying to look at that supply chain procurement piece. There's a lot of work to be done for all of us, and it's not an easy journey, but definitely I think this current cohort of students, I'd say I'd kind of say similar to, I think you were saying over the last couple of years, and I'm noticing that with our student body as well. So we now have quite a number of student societies. I mean, Daniel's my intern, so we've got a lot more engagement from students. And where students go, the faculty follow. So, you know, the more the students shout, if you think strike for schools, this is the generation. You know, these guys who've just come in as first years, they were the ones striking for schools. So we are now having that group of, you know, Greta Thunberg's children, as it were coming through, and obviously they're incredibly passionate, and we want to work with that passion to make sure that our operations and our facilities are as good as they can be, if not better.
Thanks, Justine.
Ian, can
And
I just...
just a plug, I think, for the sort of educational and scientific establishments in Norfolk and Suffolk, and I've worked with a lot of them over the last few years at the LEP. If you were in America and you had the University of East Anglia, University of Suffolk, East Coast College, New Suffolk College, whatever else, etc., Cambridge University just down the road, you'd be calling it Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT or Silicon Valley, wouldn't you? It's that good. The level of science and education and academia and research and innovation in this region is second to none. We constantly fail to brand it and tell the rest of the world about how good it is. And it's a personal sort of mission of mine to contribute to doing that. You've got such a wealth of knowledge and experience in this region, and we just don't sell it enough. We really don't. That's no disrespect or criticism to anybody. It's just recognizing the strength of what we've got here, really.
Yeah, well, this is where that Institute of Technology, which
Yeah.
you helped fund, is coming forward to bring that together, because we're aware of that, and it is bringing it together, and hopefully we hear soon, don't we? and then we can take that forward. But the other side of it, and I don't want to put pressure on Justine, but as quite important parts of our community, both in Lowestoft and in Ipswich and Suffolk in general, we should be leading on this and demonstrating. And I think it was the West Suffolk College was sort of talking about leaders coming in and getting that, but we need to give the advice, and we need to demonstrate from our own practice of what can be done and what is best practice. And that's just my view. And I put the pressure onto Justine about that, because I know she can do it.
Well, thanks very much, panel. I think we're there if everybody's had their questions. That's a tremendous contribution to the day, I think, definitely. And thanks very much to our younger members today for, bringing us to a sort of
It's been our pleasure.
a sobering up of what we've got to do in the next few years. Absolutely. I think we're going to move straight into workshops, is that right? But you can grab a coffee on the way and take your coffees into the workshop and have a little break as you go, so to speak. Does everybody know where the workshops are?
No.
Yeah, you'll be shown apparently. So you can progress to your workshops.